Captain's Log, Stardate 13140.4. It is day 29 of self-isolation for COVID-19. As today is the final day of spring break, I am beginning to resume activities for distance learning, including recording read-aloud videos for my students. I have decided to spend today reading about another famous Starfleet officer, Ambassador Spock. Fascinating: The Life of Leonard Nimoy by Richard Michelson, illustrated by Edel Rodriguez. Lenny took a deep breath and looked out at the Playhouse Stage. Just that morning, he had been shooting baskets in the gym at the Elizabeth Peabody Settlement House. He hadn't even known the building had a theater. But Mr. Chaffin, the new social director, had heard Lenny chanting the Shema prayer with his father at Temple Beth Israel, and he needed someone to sing God Bless America to open tonight's talent show. Lenny peered out at the audience from behind the curtain. Was every person in Boston's West End here? He could see Stanley and George as best friends since kindergarten. Now it was 1939 and they were in the 3rd grade. And there was his brother, Mel, wearing his high school science lab apron. In the front row sat 2 empty chairs. One had a handwritten sign that said, "Reserved for Max Nimoy." The other said, "Andorra." Finally, Lenny saw his mother hurrying down the aisle with a big grin on her face. His father, following, was still wearing his barber smock. He must have come straight from his shop, where he'd been cutting hair since immigrating to Boston from Russia 16 years ago. When they arrived in this country, Max and Dora's passports were stamped alien, and that was how they still felt. But they trusted the settlement house, which taught immigrant families to be American. There were classes in how to boil hot dogs and how to brush your teeth with a toothbrush instead of a rag. "There's so much to know it makes me dizzy," Max would moan. The house lights went down and the footlights went up. "Reach for the stars," Mr. Chaffin said as Lenny stepped onto the stage. Walking home with his family, Lenny couldn't stop whistling. "Such clapping I never heard before," his mother said, beaming. The neighbors leaned out their windows to offer congratulations. "Bravo!" Mr. Basso boomed. "May luck be your friend forever, lad," Mrs. Kernan sang out. Most of the neighbors were Italian or Irish. Lenny could find his way home with his eyes closed just by following the smells that wafted from each tenement kitchen. Garlic meant they were passing the Greco's apartment and were almost at 87 Chambers Street, where he shared 4 small rooms with Mel, his parents, and his Bubba and Zeta. Most all the kids in the building got along, but every Sunday Lenny felt left out when his friends went to church. Still, he felt special when his father took him to shul. On Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, Lenny watched the men in front start swaying and singing a special prayer. "We're supposed to cover our eyes during the priestly blessing," Max whispered, "so don't look. No cheating." Lenny peeked. He was fascinated by what he saw. The men pulled their prayer shawls over their heads, but their chants only got louder. As they blessed the congregation, they raised both arms in the air and held out their hands as if they were shooting a 2-handed jump shot. What were they doing with their fingers? Fascinating. He couldn't ask, or his father would know he disobeyed. That night in his room, Lenny practiced what he'd witnessed. He taped his finger to his index finger and middle finger, then his pinky and ring finger. By the time of his bar mitzvah, Lenny could make the gesture easily with either hand. His fingers looked like the letter shin, which he learned in Hebrew school, was the first letter of the word shalom, or peace, and Shaddai, one of the names for God. After school, Lenny peddled newspapers on Beacon Hill. He learned everything that was important that was going on in the world when he shouted out the day's headlines. Plus, he made 1.50 pennies for every record he sold. Some evenings, he also stacked chairs at the bandshell. Once, he stayed too late, and Max and Dora came looking for him. "It isn't safe to be out after dark," his father yelled. He grabbed the $2 Lenny had been paid, ripped each bill in half, and threw them to the ground. But Lenny saw his mother pick up the torn bills before she started home. Money was hard to come by, and a little Scotch tape could fix anything. At home, Bubba made him feel better. She sang him a Yiddish song about a boy who wanted to turn into a bird and explore the planet. Zeta added, "Go, do, discover. Our world is a fascinating place. Your parents worry because they love you, but sometimes too much love can clip your wings." Lenny was saving every penny he made. The family had gotten a Kodak bellows camera and he needed film to take some pictures. He tried to capture all the wisdom and wit in Zeta's face. Click. For the first time, he noticed the sad lines around Bubba's eyes. Click. Next, he studied his mother and father through the viewfinder. He had never looked at them so closely. He could always tell what his mother was thinking. Click. But his father mostly hid his emotions. Click. Lenny knew you needed a dark room without any windows to develop pictures, so he closed the door to the family bathroom and turned out the light. Slowly, he watched each image emerge. Fascinating. It was magic. He was exposing his family's souls. When Lenny was 17, he heard that the Settlement House Theater was putting on a performance of Awake and Sing by the playwright Clifford Odets. It was about 3 generations of a poor Jewish family who lived together in one small apartment. The director needed someone to play the part of the son who yearned for a better life and a society where everyone was treated fairly. Lenny read the play. Could the author have known the Nimoys? How did Mr. Odets understand what Lenny was thinking? Thoughts he hadn't shared with anyone. Lenny loved performing. He tried out for every play he could. Each character was different, and he always tried to figure out their hopes and dreams, and their secrets, too. He was in a play at a local temple when Father John Bond came backstage. "What are you doing this summer?" he asked. "I have nothing planned," Lenny answered. "Well, you do now, son," the priest said. He invited Lenny to attend the Boston College Summer Theater program on scholarship. By August, Lenny knew he wanted to be a professional actor. His parents had traveled across the ocean in pursuit of a better life. Now he would travel across the country to Hollywood to follow his dreams. But the train travel was expensive. Where would he get the money? Ace Vacuum Cleaners was hiring door-to-door salesmen. "You offer a cheap Electrolux for $10, the boss told him. "But once you get past the front door, you have to talk the housewife into spending $100 for a fancy machine." The first few women slammed the doors in his face. The next 2 let Lenny demonstrate the product, but they didn't buy anything. Maybe he was too quiet and honest for this job. Then he had an idea. Lenny pretended he was on stage, playing the part of a confident and slightly shady salesman. Soon he had a pocket full of money. In September 1949, he was standing at South Station wearing a blue double-breasted suit from Filene's basement and holding a train ticket to California. His mother gave him a hug goodbye. There were tears in her eyes. "May you live till 120 and have a long and healthy life like Moses." "Learn to play the accordion," his father called out as he stepped onto the 20th Century Limited. "Actors starve, but at least musicians eke out a living." Hollywood was hot, and everyone dressed casually. Leonard felt like an outsider as he looked for the Pasadena Playhouse, where he would study acting. He was sweating in his wool suit, but he had no time to change his clothes. He was too eager to change his life. Leonard worked as a movie theater usher, then a soda jerk. Next, he drove a taxi so that he could be available for auditions during the day. One night, he picked up a man with a Boston accent. Leonard felt homesick. Maybe his father was right. He should forget his dreams and head home. But his passenger advised, "Never give up as long as you can make a difference in people's lives. Lots of competition in your business, just like in mine. But an actor is like a politician. There is always room at the top for one more good one." He handed Leonard his business card, Congressman John F. Kennedy. Leonard took the future president's advice. He worked hard, learned his lines, showed up on time, and studied his craft. When he turned 20, he got a small part in a movie called Queen for a Day. Next, he played a Martian invader in Zombies of the Stratosphere, and finally, he got his first starring role as Kid Monk Baroni. He was only paid $350, but his name was on a Boston West End movie theater marquee. He was on his way. For the next 13 years, he continued to act mostly in television series. He also opened his own studio to help teach younger performers. He got married and had 2 children, Julie and Adam. Then one day in 1965, he got a call from Gene Roddenberry, a producer who was writing a new science fiction television show called Star Trek. He wanted Leonard to play the part of an alien science officer named Spock. He explained that Spock worked with Earthlings on a ship named the Enterprise, which would take the crew to explore many new worlds. But Spock would always feel like an outsider because his father was from a planet called Vulcan, where everyone made decisions based on logic instead of emotion. Leonard wasn't sure he wanted the part. He would have to wear pointy ears and a silly haircut. What if the audience made fun of him and his career was ruined? He tried to think about his decision logically. Then he remembered looking at his own father through the camera lens and seeing all the hidden emotion on his face. And he remembered how Zeta always encouraged him to take chances. And he remembered Mr. Chaffin from back home, who told him to reach for the stars. My folks came to the United States as immigrants. They were called aliens and they became citizens, he told Mr. Roddenberry. I was born in Boston as a citizen, then came to Hollywood as an outsider, and now it is time for me to become an alien. I am Spock. Leonard poured all of his experience into the role, and people everywhere identified with Spock's attempts to fit in, even though he was different. They cheered as he stood up to bullies, argued for justice, and tried to convince everyone that it made sense to live peacefully. Back home in Boston, boys started coming into Max Nimoy's barbershop asking for a Spock haircut. Max even taped a picture of his son, the science officer, to the mirror. He was proud that Leonard was making a good living, but he still didn't understand what all the fuss was about. In Star Trek's second season, the Enterprise visited the planet Vulcan. It was the first time viewers could see the world Spock came from. The script told Spock to shake hands with the Vulcan Queen, but Leonard wanted to have a special greeting. Asians bow when they meet, he told the director, and military men salute. And how do Vulcans greet each other, he was asked. Leonard thought for a while, and then he remembered his time in the temple when he was 8 years old. He held up his hand in the ancient Hebraic gesture, and he blessed the actors he worked with, and he blessed the audience, and he blessed everyone all over the universe. Live long and prosper. Hey guys, I just wanted to jump back on here for a minute and say, first of all, thank you for watching. And second of all, obviously I'm a big fan of Star Trek and specifically of Leonard Nimoy. I'm going to throw a link down here to show a clip of an interview where he's talking about how he came up with the Vulcan salute. I especially think in a day and age of COVID-19 where we can't shake hands anymore, doing the Vulcan salute is an excellent way to greet people. So something to think about. Enjoy!